Hi everyone, I'm Griselle. I also go by Amelia, which is my pen name. And today I'm doing something I haven't done in a very long time, which is record a proper sit-down video on a real camera as opposed to like my phone. So I'm getting back into the groove of things. Apologies if the sound quality or the lighting or something is a little off because I haven't done this in a very long time. And if you see me looking that way, it's because I see disaster striking. Hold on. There are probably going to be several cuts in this video as I deal with crazy catness. Um, that is another story for another day. So the reason that we're sitting down today, I should have made a cup of tea, but it's too late now. We're just going to roll ahead. I wanted to do a sit-down video. I wanted to set an intention for a series of check-ins throughout the year as I engage in what I hope will be the low buy / no buy to end them all. I wanted to sit down and kind of go over my why I'm doing this now, why I've failed at this in the past, what led me to this place financially and like mental health wise and everything like that. And just kind of like set my goals, set my intentions for the coming year and hold myself accountable to them. Because at the end of the day, the only person I'm disappointing if I fail is really myself. But let's all go on this journey together and make what we can of it. So if you see me looking down, I'm also, I took notes. I set up a whole Notion template about this, just to, again, keep myself accountable, stick to it, and see my goals to fruition. I also am, there he goes again. I also am in the middle of a migraine attack right now. I'm not feeling great, but if we're going to wait for me to feel 100%, we're going to be waiting a long time. So as many people with chronic illness knows, you kind of just have to take your days as they come. And this is the moment we have right now. I am functional, so we're going to go ahead. But if I should slur my words a little bit or look a little bit like I'm losing my train of thought, that's why. But anyhow, so what brings us here today? Well, if you've been following me for a while, and a few of you have, because I know that a few of you have been watching for a while, I tried to do a no buy / low buy in 2022. I originally started my channel kind of like just, experimenting with stuff, reviewing things, and engaging in what I called at the time minimalist transitions, mostly inspired by Marie Kondo and having read her books early on when those first came out and stuff like that. And having grown up both poor and with, I wouldn't call my mom a full-blown hoarder, but she had hoarding tendencies, and that led to my own anxieties regarding too much stuff. So a little bit of not wanting to overspend because of anxiety about finances, and a little bit of not wanting to overbuy because of anxiety about stuff in the house and how much stuff surrounds me, and that makes me a little bit like unable to get stuff done. I don't have ADHD or any kind of spectrum disorders, but I do have migraine disorder, and sometimes like just like being surrounded by too much stuff also gets me a little bit triggered. So that's a reality. I could go deeper into it, but the short story is growing up poor and growing up with a little bit of a hoarding situation at home definitely just sort of like led to some core instincts or memories that you can sort of pick out in my stress about money. So in 2022, I tried to do a no buy / low buy because following the pandemic, I did feel that I had strayed from a lot of my sort of personal lifestyle goals from those minimalist transitions that I had engaged in. I think part of it was spurred a little bit from that panic buying mode, the sense in those first few months that I didn't have the necessities of life and I didn't know how long I would be forced to live this way. So that led into a little bit of panic buying. I've kind of, moved on from that, but, I for a little while had way too much backups. And so now breaking out of that habit, again, I don't like to have too many backups because I don't have the space for it. And I like novelty, so why should I have too much of the same thing? The other part was that I definitely fell into a depression and a bit of burnout. I went through a few health issues post pandemic, like during the pandemic and post pandemic, not COVID related, but just like things that happened in my life. And those led to definite feelings of burnout and definitely a sense of depression. And I know that I self soothed in a few ways with just buying stuff like for the newness of it, the excitement of it, the dopamine hit, whatever you want to call it. And so that happened. And I have certain triggers in particular that are the ones that I would like to address with this no buy. So those triggers include makeup, which I've talked about before on the channel, and clothing. I had not made a minimalist capsule wardrobe, but created sort of like an intentional capsule of sorts. And in that time period, I did acquire a lot of stuff. Again, because it was like, well, I've been wearing the same clothes for 5 years and I'm sad and lonely and I want to put on something pretty. And so that happened. I also had some weight fluctuations. If you've also been along for this ride for a while, you know that I have hypothyroidism in addition to my migraine disorder. And while I have maintained my weight overall for a pretty long time, I did have a little bit of a shift in my thyroid medicine that had to happen circa 2018 or so. It took a little while for that to kind of like settle down, and it's been a little bit acting up again lately. So I have put on some weight, and that obviously led to needing to buy new clothes. So hand in hand with the overbuying of stuff was also well, I want to feel comfortable, and none of this clothes is comfortable anymore. I had lost some weight, I think partly because of all the depression and anxiety I was going through during the pandemic. Then we started back in the office. I started working again. I started having my crazy long commute. So my, extra walking time during the day where I was just like walking around my neighborhood to, maintain a routine of activity, that changed suddenly. And it took a while for me to rebalance my sense of work and life and to find room again for daily movement. With a thyroid disorder, you definitely need daily movement, not just for your body, but also for your general well being. And that obviously led to changes in my body weight. I'm also middle aged, so like that comes with a whole other slew of issues regarding how your body changes. So that also led to spending and to a closet full of stuff, much of which I look at now and I'm like, did I really have to buy this? Did I waste my money? Several declutters in. I need to stop bringing stuff into the house. The stuff has to stop. So those are two of my main triggers, makeup and clothing. Perfume, I would kind of count it in there. I don't really buy too many perfumes because of the headache disorder and it's very tied to scents for me. But lately I got nostalgic and I went down a rabbit hole of purchasing like scents that I used to like when I was younger, and that was interesting. I can't wear most of them, so that was pointless, but what happened. We have to just move on and accept it and change our habits from then on. So those are the main areas I'm trying to address with the low/no buy. I'm also doing this because, frankly, cost of living is ridiculous around here. I live in Miami. It is now considered, I don't know if we're the most expensive city in the country or like one of the most expensive cities, depends on which list you're looking at. But even though I am like paying under market compared to most people in this area just for my space, it's an older apartment. It's rented from, a person who owns it. It's not like a luxury space. It's not in the best conditions. I do what I can with it and I'm happy here. But, it has its cons in terms of, as a living dwelling, but it's not the luxury condos that most people are paying $3,000 for, $4,000 for, whatever crazy amount you can think of. Like somebody out there is paying it for ridiculously small spaces in Miami. But I have still had several rent increases, and despite getting, like small raises at work, it just doesn't add up. Like the cost of living adjustments do not add up with the actual raises. So if I want to meet my financial goals in life, if I want to have a good life in retirement, I need to deal with it now. I will say just up front, I'm fine. I can meet all my expenses. I can, live with a few luxuries, but I can also live with a fewer luxuries and save that money for, the future and for investments. I do have a financial advisor that I talk to, so I'm good in that sense. We actually just met recently, and she always tells me, like, I'm doing great. She's like, you're doing better than most people I talk to, but it all goes back to that whole, like, childhood being poor situation. If you've grown up poor, I think you always have a hard time letting go of the sense that you will fall in hard times and not have enough. If you relate to that, I'm sorry, it sucks. I hate that feeling that, like, never goes away. I'm sure that I could talk about it with many a therapist, but it's still there. It's ingrained in me. It goes back to things my mom said when we were growing up, the general instability of our lives, and health related financial disasters that happened growing up. So in my mind, there's always that sense of I'm like one disaster away from being on the street. It's not true. I have set up, the things I need to in order to survive. I have a fallback if I need to. I have family that will help. I have loved ones that will help. My partner tells me this all the time. He's like, you're not going to end up on the street. You have people in your life. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still there. That little niggling thought is still there. So that's something that I also want to get back to those good habits for, because I feel like having that sense of conscious consumerism, accountability, and more in tune awareness of where my money is helps me to not have as much of those panic moments. So that is part of what we're doing. And also just, a plane is passing. And also, just not wanting to fall into the trap of lifestyle creep and, excessive consumerism. I don't want to create more waste in the planet. I don't want to constantly have to declutter stuff that I spent money on. What has he done now? I don't want to know why I heard a thump in the living room, but that is what we have heard. So my goal in this is to check in monthly and to check in quarterly to maintain a budget, which I have started doing again. I had stopped budgeting for a little bit because there were too many random unforeseen expenses that kept coming up and throwing my budget just for a loop. I have had like 3 major car repairs in the last 2 years. In the last 3 years, I had a few major financial situations involving vet bills. 2 of my cats passed away, one in 2020, one in 2021. And so I did have insurance at the time, but there were still expenses incurred. And so I had to dip into my emergency savings for those. I had to dip into emergency savings for the car. And so I've basically hit even in terms of saving. Like every year I've put back what I had to take out, but I haven't made more. And that's where I'm trying to shift to be able to get back to baseline and put it towards investing and building more for that cushion. So regular tracking my spending, interrogating what I buy. I do have a $100 what I call low buy budget, which is I can spend that $100 on whatever I want, but it's only $100, so I have to think about what I want. I will be upfront and say that I had already made my purchases for January, even though it is the start of January, but our anniversary is celebrated pretty early on in January, and we take a trip every year to South Beach because it's one of the places that happens to be open on January 1st. So I had already planned to go to a couple of stores that I don't ever really visit because I never go down there. I absolutely hate going to the beach, but it's fun on the 1st and there's nobody really around except for a handful of tourists. So I had already intentionally planned what I was going to spend that day, and that is done. I didn't use up the entire budget, so I will say that, but I used a portion of it already. And I'm also planning a one nice date budget of also like $120 buffer. That's usually enough for like a decent like mid-range date for the two of us, and that can include experiences, food, whatever, but just like a one nice experience a month type of budget. If I don't use it, it'll roll over, and if I do, then it's there. So that's accounted for in my budget lines. I also have like, certain lines for sinking funds for like my car insurance, for other expenses that I know are coming up, so those have to be addressed. But my goal is to stay under budget as much as possible and as much as realistically possible. Because like I said, I've had a few expenses that have just crept up, like medical expenses. I was just in the hospital last month, so like those are things that I didn't really account for, new medications, etc. So sometimes my medical surprises kind of throw my budget for a loop. If I can at least keep within that budget and stay a little bit under, that would give me a buffer, and that's my goal. And lastly, as part of my regular tracking and being more aware of what I have, I'm not going to do a full-blown inventory because I just do not have the time for that, and I have a pretty solid sense of what I own in terms of stuff. What I am doing is doing a weekly shop my stash type of plan. I don't know if I'm going to record that. Maybe I'll turn that into shorts. I don't know. I haven't really gone to the shorts route yet, but that's an area that I thought maybe might be fun. So doing a weekly shop my stash of those areas where I have too much. So shopping my stash in terms of accessories, perfumes, makeup, and bags. Those are areas, accessories, etc. Like bags, hair, accessories, all clumped into one category. And just sort of like changing those up weekly so that I can rotate the things, feel that sense of newness, and really appreciate what I have, because I have really nice things. I've, invested in quality pieces over the years. It's just been in the last, like 2.5 years that I've kind of strayed from my major life plan. And life philosophy, I guess you could call it. So like living simply, living intentionally, living with, like materials that bring you joy as opposed to just fill your space with stuff. That is something I'm working on. And so that is the plan. I don't want this to be a failure like 2022. If I fall off track, I will be honest about it. One of my biggest spending areas aside from stuff is really just eating out, and I kind of, before the year started, I started sort of like re-implementing these tactics and these strategies. So for the last 3 months I have been tracking and seeing like, where is it that my money is going, and a lot of it has been going to eating out. So that is something that I actually have addressed with my partner. I told him, like, not only is it not great for my health, because if I don't know what's in the food, it can trigger the migraines. It can make me feel awful. A lot of stuff happens when I eat things that are not great for my body. And it's also just not great for my wallet. In addition to the cost of living increases, like food is ridiculous. Like food is just absurdly expensive around here. Stuff that used to cost us like $25, maybe $30 for the two of us is now like 50 something, 60 something. Like we go to places where we used to get a meal for two under $50, and now those are definitely in the 60 range or 70, and that's not including the tip. Once you add the tip, forget it. Like, it goes up. So sometimes we're going to places where it isn't special. It's just like your average place to go, like what would have been considered like a $1 or $2 bill, category just a couple years ago, and now these places feel like luxury expenses because they're so overpriced. And let's not get started on, the ridiculousness of places not paying people enough, and so then you have to tip these amounts that are getting increasingly more expensive as food gets more expensive. Like, pay your employees. Don't rely on them having to earn tips. That's a whole other conversation to be had. But this is where we are now. This is where we stand. So this is officially my start. I will check in at the end of the month, and maybe end of the month, maybe beginning of February. We'll see. I'm not great at, the timelines yet, because I am trying to kind of get back into the habit of making YouTube videos aside from just making vlogs. I would like to be more active on this channel this year, and since this channel originally started as a way for me to track my intentions and track my habits, I would like to return to that. So here we are. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are, or a great evening, night, morning, whatever it is. And I will check in with you guys later. Have a good one and stay well until next time.